Good evening. Good evening. Anyway, put those back. You know. Hello. It's been a minute. Hopefully my phone doesn't screw up today. I don't know what it did last time. That big chunk of the video was missing. It broke the other one up into like these 6-minute chunks and stuff. I don't know. I think Google Photos updated or some shit. I think I ran out of room on my storage device and it decided to take over everything. Going some Cat Stevens earlier. Said Lisa. Very good song. Um, wow. You know, it's so funny. I can't tell you how many times I have like 100 things I want to make a video about or talk about, and then I turn the camera on and I'm like, so please bear with me. No, one of the guys who does groups here, natural. He's a natural. He has a certain level of confidence and charisma about him. He's very authentic, and it comes through. So I kind of half listened in on that today. And he was talking about several different things, but one of the things that I picked up on was, I think he's got 8.5 years sobriety now, but about how, we have to stop emotionally reacting. Impulse reaction, I should say, not necessarily emotional reaction, but that oftentimes your emotions or your emotional reaction to a situation or a person is not always objectively true. It is true in the aspect that this is how it's affecting you and this is how you feel. Nobody's trying to invalidate your feelings. But there's a difference. Somebody said to me a long time ago, there's a difference between acting out your emotions and acting on your emotions. And that kind of rolled into, he actually gave a beautiful example of step one about how, anybody who has anything longer than really a couple of weeks in sobriety, even one day, really. I mean, once you get past the initial shock that the body goes through, once you get past the detox phase and the withdrawal phase, at that point, not initially, but very soon thereafter, if you pick up again, it's really your choice. Um, that's not to discredit people who still have cravings and everything after you initially quit. Okay. And yes, I know full well what that experience is like. But once you break that cycle of craving and whatnot, um, that initial physical dependency, at that point, it's about learning how to break the emotional and mental dependency on insert mechanism of escape. Um, but he gave a great example of that. At this point, he has a choice. He can choose to pick up that drink, choose to say no. Or if it's a really bad spot, he can choose to call a sponsor or one of this, peer support group, whatever. Um, and this is a great example of step one. I know I used to struggle with that step all the time. And the nuts and bolts of it is simply this: while you're under the influence of your drug of choice or your means of escape, you are powerless. because you no longer have the power of choice. You've given that up, and he talked a lot about this. He talked about how easily and how quickly we devoted ourselves and surrendered our will and everything over to this substance or this lifestyle or the combination of both. Yet we're so reluctant to turn our will over to recovery. Or in this particular case, because it is a faith-based house that I'm in, not just recovery, but to quote him or to put into his words, paraphrase him, I should say, um, surrender to salvation through whatever religion or dogma you follow. It made me think of a lyric of a song, um, Crosby, Stills and Nash, Southern Cross, great tune. There's a line in there that says, "We never failed to fail. It was the easiest thing to do." And it's true. And from there, he kind of rolled into how, once you start to fix the inside, the outside will reflect that. And I've talked a lot about that before in the past, as within, so without. And it's very true. Um, Part of the reason, as an addict in recovery and other addicts, go back to the default is because it is easy. And because this is what we got to remember that's kind of a reflection of how we think about ourselves and how we feel about ourselves. Any addict or alcoholic who gets brutally, and I mean brutally, honest with themselves will tell you that they hate themselves in some way or another, or they suffer from some massive amounts of insecurities and self-worth issues. And so their actions and behaviors reflect that. You know, it always amazes me, guys, who they think they're so slick. And I was like this myself. I'm 100% guilty of this. I thought I was so slick. I thought I was fooling everybody. Right. Okay. you know. But he was talking about how, recovery and salvation are not the same thing. And they're not. The one thing I will say that is common between the two is making that decision to surrender. That's the hardest part. It really is. And then sticking with it afterwards. So it was it was a good group for sure. Um, Pretty sure me and my sister are going to be doing some more collaborative videos here real soon. I think we're going to be talking about symbolism, synchronicities. Um, One of my subscribers, I think she's still a subscriber. I'm still subscribed to her channel anyway. Recently was talking about this in one of her videos um, about essentially asking the universe for confirmation on things. When you're in a particular mindset, a particular state of flow, meditative state, if you were, uh, ways that you can essentially ask for confirmation, not only for yourself and where you're at on your journey, but through different forms of manifestation and how it will almost always. And I 100% agree with her on this. In my own personal experience, I've experienced it many, many times. That usually that confirmation shows up within a week in many different ways. Um, I get, synchronicities all the time. I mean, literally every day, all day long. To the point where if I don't get a lot in a day, that's when I know something's off. I'm off balance somewhere somehow, you know. So I think we'll be talking about that. There's a lot that people will overlook. You know, and it's an interesting subject too because you know you have to take into consideration what some people would consider a synchronicity, others would not at all. Um, there are a lot of universal ones, and then there are a lot of personal ones, very similar to dream interpretation. There's a lot of universal symbolism in dreams, and there's a lot of personal symbolism in dreams as well. Um, excuse me. So I think we'll get into that. You know, what gives something power is you, whether it be a word, a number, color, an animal, a totem, not just power, but its importance, what it means to you. And like I said, there's a lot of universal meanings, guidelines. The really interesting part is, you know, having the discernment to decide, you know, am I just seeing more synchronicities because I want to? Is this a self fulfilling prophecy? Or am I truly in the flow, walking in grace, doing for your highest good, doing for the highest good of those around you? It gets tricky sometimes. It really does. Usually, a good clue for me is what was I thinking or feeling at the moment that it happened or right before it came up. Usually gives me a pretty good clue as to is it truly guide or is it just my subconscious mind validating itself? Then, of course, what's the difference? I'm sure we'll get into that. That I have no doubt. I've been hibernating, enjoying my little bit of staycation. It wasn't until I stopped working when I got laid off for the winter that I realized how tired I was. um, but yeah, it's time to get busy again. Sad season, you know, fiery action mode. Yeah, that's it for now. There'll definitely be more soon. Promise. Have a blessed night.